J.R.R. Tolkien was one of the greatest literary minds of the 20th century. Not only did he pioneer the modern fantasy genre, but he was also an outstanding theologian and led a very interesting life. John Ronald Reuel Tolkien was born on the 3rd of January, 1892, in Bloemfontein, Orange Free State. When he was very young, he was bitten by a large venomous tarantula. At the age of 3, his family took a trip to England, with his father planning on meeting them soon. Sadly, his father died of rheumatic fever before he could leave South Africa. His mother then took him and his brother, Hilary, to live with family in England. Young Tolkien spent lots of time playing outside, exploring the countryside or family properties like his aunt's farm, Bag End. Tolkien loved botany and languages, spending hours drawing trees and flowers or learning the old languages like Latin. When Tolkien was 12, his mother passed away. Her friend, Father Francis Xavier Morgan, a devout Catholic, took the boys in. Tolkien attended St. Edward's School, Birmingham, and St. Philip's School. While at St. Philip's, he joined Officers' Training Corps. As a teenager, he invented a language with his cousins, and Amalek, and later on 2 on his own, Nevbosh and Nafarin. These would go on to inspire his famous fictitious languages such as Sindarin or Quenya. When he was 16, he met Edith Mary Bratt. Very quickly, their friendship grew into a romance. Father Morgan disapproved of Tolkien dating an older Protestant. Tolkien begrudgingly decided not to disappoint Morgan, and didn't write Edith for 3 years. On his 21st birthday, however, he was overcome with his love for her and wrote her asking to marry him. In January of 1913, they were engaged. Edith converted to Catholicism, and the two were married on the 22nd of March, 1916. They later on had 4 children. Only 3 months later, Tolkien was called to serve at the front in the Great War. In July of 1916, young Tolkien, part of the Lancashire Fusiliers, was deployed at the Battle of the Somme. Many of his childhood friends were killed in the Somme. Tolkien himself managed to survive by contracting trench fever and being sent back to England that November. For the rest of the war, he was stuck in recovery, where he wrote The Fall of Gondolin, followed by other stories from the Book of Lost Tales. He aimed to create a mythology unique to England. While on leave from his local station, he and Edith took walks together in the woods. He fondly recalled that one time she danced for him in the woods, inspiring him to create the tale of Beren and Luthien. He was released from the army in July of 1919. His first job after the war was for the Oxford English Dictionary, where he researched the origin of words, beginning with the letter W. In 1920, he became the youngest professor at the University of Leeds. During his time as a professor, he translated important works such as Sir Gawain and the Green Knight and Beowulf. Sometime around 1931, an informal literary society was founded in Oxford called the Inklings. Tolkien was soon to become a prominent member of this group, as was his good friend C.S. Lewis. Tolkien and Lewis, an atheist until Tolkien converted him, had many discussions on Christianity, providing long-lasting beliefs and philosophies still used to this day. Tolkien was very involved with his children. For example, he wrote them letters from Santa, later publishing them as the Father Christmas Letters. One evening, while grading papers, Tolkien noticed one of his students had accidentally left a page blank. He felt like the page needed something, writing, "In a hole in the ground there lived a hobbit." These now famous words inspired him to write an epic tale, which he finished by 1932. He shared this story with his fellow Inklings. It was finally published on the 21st of September, 1937. Just 2 years later, war broke out in Europe. Tolkien vocally opposed both the communists and the Nazis, calling Stalin that bloodthirsty old murderer, and refusing to let his works get published in Nazi Germany. He even wrote a letter to the Nazis explaining to them that the term Aryan actually refers to Indo-Iranian languages, not a race. Following the success of The Hobbit, Tolkien started work on an even grander sequel. Many aspects of this story were inspired by his children, such as Tom Bombadil, inspired by a Dutch doll one of his sons had. This massive work was finished in 1948 with the title, The Lord of the Rings. Tolkien wrote it as 6 books, but intended to publish it as 1. However, the books would be published over a time span of 1954 to 1955, as the trilogy we know today. His book saw massive success almost immediately. He retired in 1959 and retreated to Bournemouth, a wealthy resort town. Although he was glad to see success, he hated being a cult figure amidst the counterculture movement of the 60s. Edith passed away in 1971, and Tolkien was heartbroken, as they had been together well over 50 years. He passed away just a few years later, on the 2nd of September, 1973. On their tombstone he had the names Beren and Luthien inscribed, referring to his story of the beautiful Luthien who gave up immortal life to be with the human Beren. J.R.R. Tolkien is widely known today for his creation of and stories about Middle-earth. While that is undeniably important, his other works and his life embody the ideals of his time. From his preference of nature to industrialization, to his academic interests of languages and myths, to the writings themselves, Tolkien is one of the best representations of the ideas common in the early 20th century, not amongst political rulers, but amongst the everyday people. And Tolkien was just that, an everyday person who happened to use his literary mind to spread his ideas for generations to come. In The Hobbit, Gandalf puts it best. I found it is the small everyday deeds of ordinary folk that keep darkness at bay. Small acts of kindness and love.
If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like and subscribe. I'm Matthew, and I hope I'll see you next time.
Goodbye, goodbye, went a tear, baby dear, from your eye. Though it's hard to part, I know, I'll be sick of the death to go. Don't cry, don't die, there's a silver lining in the sky. Once more, old thing, cheerio, chin, chin, na, boo,